So last but not least in this session, our MVP, as we call her, for Tech Asians here at the CoMuseum, who for the third time consecutive year is revealing to us the future of things and always has something pioneer to share. Please welcome Devine, Business Strategy Leader for Libraries and Museums at Microsoft Worldwide Education. Her keynote for this year is Exploring the Possibilities of Intelligent Environments in Museums. Catherine.
Thank you so much, Sophia. So thrilled to be back again and looking forward to, I had the pleasure of coming to Greece 2 years ago. I hope that next year we get to do this in person. So I'm talking about a potentially new topic today I often talk about all the possibilities of digital transformation in museums. But today I want to talk about intelligent environments. And I want to talk about, particularly when we think about sustainability, environmental sustainability, and how museums can leverage technology to further both their financial sustainability and their environmental sustainability. Hopefully this is interesting, new topics that maybe you haven't heard before. And let's get started. For those of you who don't know me, I hope you all do by now, but just in case you don't know me, I'm based in Seattle here at Microsoft. I'm coming out of the museum industry, so I have some good depth of experience there, leading digital transformation. Joined Microsoft 3 years ago, and in my role, I think about what are the trends and the opportunities for digital transformation for museums around the world. I have the great pleasure of talking to and visiting museums around the world. It's a great privilege to have this role. So I want to always start with where how to think about technology in museums. We always come from the angle of maybe very visible technology in galleries, and I'm here to broaden the horizons about the possibilities. But I always come back to why technology. Technology is because we're mission-driven organizations, and it should never be technology for technology's sake. It should always be about how does it help us achieve the mission. And sustainability is definitely, both financial and environmental, is definitely a core way of achieving our missions. And I'll run some new ideas past you today. If you're also not familiar, we at Microsoft developed a digital transformation framework for museums. And you've seen this before, hopefully. If you haven't, then happy to talk to you about it. The objective here is to think about a holistic digital strategy and opportunities. And we're going to talk today about this quadrant down the bottom in blue, in the bottom right, for those who may be color challenged, is around intelligent environments. So this is actually about how we can use the building as a way of digital transformation and to drive reduced costs, to drive increased environmental positive impact, and all of those kinds of good things. And ultimately, there's a great financial benefit there as well. So we're going to discuss three core technologies. One is smart buildings, a topic I actually really love, and I'll tell you as I get into it, hopefully you'll understand why. Cloud infrastructure in a way that maybe you haven't thought about before. So often we talk about cloud, but why cloud, and how does cloud help achieve your environmental sustainability goals? And digital twins, another topic maybe you've been exposed to, maybe not. Some really great applications for digital twins. So I want to sort of brief you on all of these. We only have a short time, so I'm only going to be able to cover them at a high level, but very happy to dig deeper with anybody on any of these topics subsequently. So just feel free to reach out to me. So let's start with smart buildings. So the first thing is, you probably, when we talk about environmental sustainability in the world across all industries, the thing that we know is that 36% of energy demand in the world is actually coming from buildings. And I mean buildings, so obviously it comes from homes and things like that, but really these big office buildings, manufacturing plants, all of these things. And so anything that we can do to reduce our energy requirements in a building, of which museums are big consumers of energy as well, And it's a big part of their cost base. Anything we can do is good for the environment, but it's also really good for your financial bottom line. Smart buildings, which I'm going to get into a little bit in more detail about what they are and how they can help, is a way to actually reduce 30%, up to 30% of your current energy costs. So whatever you're currently paying today for energy could be reduced 30% with the use of things like smart sensors and all of the technology that comes with that. And I think sometimes when we think about digital transformation in museums, we don't necessarily think about saving money. We think about how to create great experiences for our visitors. But this is another way, by saving the actual costs of running the building, is a way to actually free up funds for more things that are about achieving your mission. So this is a bit of a what we call an eye chart here in the US, but let me help you sort of walk through this so you understand what the opportunities are. So we start at the bottom, and the bottom is there are some base things around smart buildings. Smart buildings is effectively sensors that come together and have insights and do intelligent things. So one is everything about just running power, water, air quality, etc. All of that, very facilities focused, is just like the base level of smart buildings. You can use sensors that just automatically turn lights off when there aren't people there, turn them on at certain times, make more use of the cooling needs and things like that. We have a smart campus here in Seattle. I love being there because I just find all that technology so much fun. But it automatically adjusts the temperature depending on where people are and where they aren't, rather than just having the entire building done at a constant temperature. But it also comes around water and waste usage as well. So that's kind of a base level. And then you get into this like next level of smart buildings, which is this middle thing, which is, well, how do you manage security? How can you manage security without necessarily them only relying on security guards? And there are lots of amazing technologies which can do things like detect people running in a building, which may be indication of a security incident. Because generally people don't run in museums. I guess some people do, but generally not. And so you get into, well, how can we use Internet of Things technology to be able to identify where people could, there could be an incident, or where an object was and is now no longer, and actually be able to trace back to it, rather than just relying on humans to be able to observe these kinds of things. And then at the very top level, we get into what we call about the employee experience, your staff experience, but also your visitor experience, which is, how do we get ambient intelligence around how people are moving around the building, how the building is being used, how that could be predictive, how can that improve productivity in a workplace? How could that also improve the visitor experience in terms of being able to direct people in things like, where the busiest place is, and so you have more spread out sort of traffic. These are the kinds of things, and we don't have the time to get into all the details, but really we want to sort of split it into like these kinds of three categories. I'm going to share a bunch of slides here that I'm not going to go through in great detail, but I want you to have so that you understand the possible use cases here. So on this whole right side, I just talked about those three areas. You get into all of the types of things that you could do. And here we get into the types of things that you can measure in the environment. So it could be things like elevators, so smart usage of elevators or lifts, depending on the part of the world you are. The temperature, the humidity, the lights, the carbon dioxide, noise. And you can think about how to use this in something like collection storage. How could you use this to create, because often collection storage needs to be in an environment that is very different to where visitors and humans are most comfortable. And so how could you manage this? Lighting, blinds, HVAC is air conditioning, all of those kinds of things. So again, not going to do lots of detail here, but give you an idea about how you can save money, but also create a better experience for you and for your staff and your visitors. Talk you quickly about how we do this at Microsoft. So as I said, we have a smart campus at Microsoft. In that, we had these kinds of experiences. So this is an example of, we have screens all over the place in the office building, which means that I can visually look at this and see what is open and what is not. So we don't have offices at Microsoft. Everyone is like hot desking or available desks to work privately. And then when you meet with people, you meet in a room. Or you meet in some sort of an open area. And so this gives you a quick visual look at what's available right this second, allows me to book it with one touch, but also means I'm not walking around. It's a good 1,000 steps to walk around the floor that I work on to find a room, right? But the other thing that this does is if someone books a room and then doesn't show up, the room is automatically released after 10 minutes. And they saved so much time of people walking around trying to find rooms, of people who didn't show up for meetings, and then people couldn't find rooms because the meeting was occupied, but really it wasn't. All of these kinds of things are the kinds of things that you can do with a smart building environment. Obviously, then you have your experience as an employee but you also have the aggregate experience about how is the space being used. And we have this lovely visualization here, which is like a time and motion study about how the space is being used, which actually substantially helped the organization optimize its use of real estate, its use of space for employees, which is also something that is a consideration for museums everywhere. I personally find this kind of thing fascinating, but you can think about how this gets applied to a museum. How are things being used? When are they being used? Find the patterns in that, try and predict where your visitors will go. So not just where your visitors arrive based on weather and other factors, but actually, how they're actually going to behave when they're in the building. So let's quickly move now to cloud infrastructure. Cloud, I'm sure most people are familiar with the term cloud. It's unfortunately one of those terms that means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but essentially it is infrastructure, which means you don't have to have servers in your building. You can use shared resources in a data center that you pay for as you consume them, which ultimately is much more economically efficient, but most importantly is environmentally efficient. And you may not have realized that. So firstly, Microsoft has a negative carbon goal to reach by 2050, and 2030 to be zero carbon and negative carbon by 2050. And so the way that they're doing this is looking at how they actually remove all future emissions, but actually all emissions that have ever been consumed by Microsoft since it was established 45 years ago. It also has a zero waste policy. Because of that, and because Microsoft has data centers throughout the world, I think it currently has 60 data centers, and I'm sure it's growing rapidly. Every single one of those data centers is designed from now on to be environmentally neutral or negative. Negative meaning in a beneficial way. So it actually does not consume as many resources as it could have. So because of Microsoft's goals here, therefore our data centers if you're using our data centers, you're going to see a 98% reduction in your carbon footprint that you're currently using for servers and technology. If you're not familiar, servers and data center rooms and things that are in your museums are expensive environmentally and financially to run. They need to be kept in cool environments. They need air conditioning, all of those good things. They generate a lot of heat, all that compute power. And this is an easy way to, firstly, it frees up your resources to focus more on your mission and less on running your technology footprint. But also it's an easy way to have an impact on achieving your own sustainability goals. We have a thing called a sustainability calculator, which is a really great way to sort of see what impact you could have from being in the cloud. Now, I talked about the cloud as being just servers, and sort of technology infrastructure, network infrastructure. But it's actually so much more than that. I just tried to oversimplify for the purpose of this conversation about the sustainability impact. But actually, there is so much more that comes with the cloud in terms of services like artificial intelligence and things like that, that you can make available to your organization and leverage. It's not going to necessarily impact your sustainability footprint, but it's but just know that the cloud is so much more than just infrastructure. And I'll just sort of leave it there. And then my final topic is on digital twins. Another topic, I love technology, so another topic that is near and dear to my heart. But if you don't know what digital twins are, it's actually exactly what it sounds like. It is a digital twin of something that exists in the real world. And so we have this kind of concept of what we call the edge and the cloud. The cloud is a central hub. The edge is the real world. So it's something that is your phone, your device, building. It's this idea of when we talk about omni-channel and multi-channel, we talk about the edge as being all of the possible channels, right? And the cloud is this central hub. But it is what it sounds like, which is a complete replica of something that exists in the real world. That could be a building in the case of smart buildings. That could be a collection object. And it could be about, we're going to get in a little sec to like, what do you do with a digital twin? It could be a collection object. So think about that. If you have a digitized version of a collection object, what could you do with that? Well, you could make that potentially very fragile, very rare, inaccessible object available anywhere in the world, anytime. How would you do that? Not just through websites. You can make it available to schools through collaborative applications, immersive environments. You're going to hear a lot more about the metaverse in 2022 than you've already heard about it in 2021. But this is the core to that idea of a 3D immersive, you're in the experience, not you're looking at the experience, such as all of our interactions with technology today are about looking at the experience, not being in the experience. But that's the idea of a digital twin. It literally is what it sounds like, a digital replica of something. So what can you do with it? So I want to show you here a quick example of, this is actually a brewery. It's actually Anheuser-Busch brewery. This is very common in manufacturing. And what we're doing here is taking a concept from manufacturing and bringing it into the museum space. And you may be a little horrified at that, but just bear with me. So the idea here is you can imagine a brewery is trying to run a large manufacturing floor. And to do that, there are lots of things that can break. There's a process that needs to run. It needs to run at optimum efficiency. Things need to be measured. I'm not an expert on beer, but I'm going to assume that if you don't brew it the right way, that it doesn't taste particularly good, for example. A digital twin allows you anywhere in the world, I could be on the whole other side of the country, to manage a manufacturing facility and get data, but not but insights, but also predictive about what will happen with your whole manufacturing process. Now let's apply that to a museum and think about, what could we do with that? It doesn't just have to be the building. It could also be your collection storage. It could be, as I said, a collection object. So when we think about this, we think about this kind of a stack of, you have the physical world down here, and then we have the digital twin. So what can we do? We can synchronize so that we actually can see what's happening in that world. Put yourself in a museum building experience. You could actually, from a central place and actually from anywhere in the world, see what's happening in your entire museum right now, both in terms of what's going to break in the building, but also in terms of what's happening in the building. And then you can use it to model. So then you can sort of say, well, how can I take that and start to model what could be? So it's like what if analysis. Clearly you can monitor. But the other one is actually track the past. Look at what happened in the past, not what's happening right now, but also what's happened in the past. What does that tell you, and how can you do something? And then how can you use this to predict and simulate? Predict and simulate an outcome. So if you think about building design, exhibition design, all of these kinds of things, digital twins are perfect for this. And then finally, you interact with the digital twin. So this allows us, we get into things called spatial anchors, another topic I love. Spatial anchors allow you to take any kind of a digital twin. So you can't do this with the real world. Take a digital twin and place it anywhere in the world. So you can imagine, and we already have this available with some partners in France. You can take your digital 3D digital exhibition and put it anywhere in the world. You could put it in a football field in Brazil, if you're in France, for example, and let people visit it in real time. This is the metaverse. This is the promise of the metaverse. So this is the kinds of technologies that I kind of wanted to talk to you about today. So 3 technologies: cloud for sustainability, digital twins, and I've forgotten what the first one was already. Oh my gosh. But anyway, the possibilities of smart buildings, how could I forget? The possibilities of technologies that can really help your sustainability, but also your financial goals. Thanks so much, Sophia.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Okay, a lot to input. The basic question, because I'm sure all of us have this in our mind, is there a plan or skill building scheme that will train cultural professionals towards, first of all, understanding and using this technology, and more specifically, towards a leaner behavior on data collection and on storage?
Yes. So Microsoft and probably all of the big tech companies, I'm sure, do this. We're all very invested in skills development, because clearly technology cannot be used without that sort of skills development. And we have it at every level. We have it at a level of what we call sort of like organizational decision makers. So people who are not technical, to understand the possibilities and how, so that to inform decisions in the organization, and also at a very technical level for people who are implementers, who are, and all of that is free. And we have many channels for that, but probably the primary channel for that is something called Microsoft Learn. I'll put it in the chat afterwards. This Microsoft Learn allows you to learn and or certify. You don't have to get certified, but sometimes, you know, it might suit your goals to learn any kind of a technology in the Microsoft portfolio, which is extensive and is way more than Microsoft offers. So into Azure Digital Twins. And these are great environments that allow you to actually create sandboxes automatically and actually play and immerse yourself in that process. So we have that, but we also have a very extensive network of training partners who also are that, but we're very invested in skills development. And I'm sorry if I missed the second part of your question, Sophia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine.
Great, thanks.
Okay, I couldn't hear you, sorry. I believe it's time to close now. I see we have no question, but sure, if anybody again wants to raise a question to Catherine, I'm sure they can find her. And tomorrow also, whoever is registered for the masterclass can interact with the Microsoft team more. So thank you very much, Catherine.
Thank you.
For once again giving us the information for the future. And we'll see you again.
Great. Thanks so much.